This is Psychology Takeaway, the podcast that attempts to take a look at new concepts in psychology and put them into some sort of a perspective so that you and I and Ralph can understand them and share them with the larger community. Hi, Ralph.
Hi, Jim. How are you today?
I'm fine today. How are you?
Well, I'm good. At least I think I'm good. And the reason I say that is I got a phone call from my doctor yesterday who said, you need to go in to our clinic and have your potassium levels checked. And this is part of a follow-up for an actual physical visit that will happen next month. And it is, in a way, an introduction to what we're going to talk about today, and that is telehealth.
Yes, it is.
My doctor was able to call me and tell me to get myself over to the clinic to get tested for a particular test that she wants for our next meeting.
Okay. We're going to talk about telemedicine, telehealth, telemedicine, teletherapy, but I think what we should do is define some terms. Telehealth has been around for quite a while. Now, you're from Canada, right, Ralph?
Right.
And in Canada, there are huge distances between towns, right?
There are a lot of times 500 or 600 miles between communities.
And it's possible that within the last 20 years or so, that doctors might have actually picked up a phone and talked to a patient who is experiencing some sort of a symptom 500 or 600 miles away. I remember back to being a kid. Remember the flying doctor in Australia?
In Australia, yeah. The distances were so long that he literally had to fly from, ranch to ranch, as we would call it in America. They call it stations in Australia.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the analogy here with telemedicine, or telehealth, I'm sorry, that you can reach people, at a distance. For example, if I have a patient or I have a client and I'm not understanding very well what the trajectory of the therapy should be, I can give a call to Dr. Jerry Fuller, who's my supervisor way back in the day, and I can talk to him not about the confidential material, but rather talk to him about my puzzlement and ask for some suggestions as to how to go forward.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that, when we talk about telehealth and it having been around for a long time, telehealth is sort of the broadest possible category.
Right.
So when they did a survey of 14 medical practitioners, they found only one that had been working with clients through remote access for more than 10 years.
Okay.
So we can say telehealth has been around for a long time, but it was not the prevalent treatment mode.
Until what happened?
Until COVID-19.
Yep, it was a game changer for a lot of individuals, our clients, our patients, and the therapeutic professionals.
And one of the things that happened, as you will remember, those of you who unfortunately lived through COVID or fortunately lived through it, the lockdowns happened, and people were told, do not gather in large groups like in a waiting room. Do not travel. Do not leave your house unnecessarily. You're
a lot of do-nots.
A lot of do-nots, and sort of the equivalent for many people in terms of their feeling of being under house arrest.
Yeah, very much. Now, you mentioned some negative things. There are some positive things that have come out of telemedicine. That is the direct contact with the client in his or her own home. One of the things that we see now is that we can get a better insight into what the home life of in my case, a kid might be, or in the case of your doc, what the home life of a Ralph Baber might be.
Yeah, and they when my doctor contacted me, it just happened that the phone rang. My wife answered it, and she said, "Ralph is out mowing the lawn. I'll bring the phone to him." Now that suggests to my doctor that although I'm an old dude, I'm still healthy enough to be out mowing the lawn, as opposed to hiring a 14-year-old.
Uh-huh. Okay. Or as opposed to being flat on your back reading a book, right? Yeah. Okay.
Which is my alternative in just about any situation.
Mm-hmm. What do we call that? Procrastinabook? No.
Procrastinabook, yeah.
Anyhow, another positive aspect of the forced telemedicine of COVID was that in some ways we had better therapeutic bonding with our clients. I see a lot of children and adolescents, and they were quite comfortable to be able to interact with me on essentially a TV screen or a computer monitor. And maybe some other people might not have been that comfortable.
Yeah, and one of the things I guess with adolescence is through places like TikTok and Facebook and so on, they have grown up fairly comfortably putting themselves out there.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in a teletherapeutic way, but just here's what is happening. Here's what I look like today.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a new shirt and I've got a new whatever, and I think I look pretty good today.
Okay, yeah. Or I've got an old shirt and old shoes, and I think I look pretty bad today.
Yeah.
I don't like the way my body works and looks. Yeah, because we get that a lot. One of the things that we've noticed, Ralph, with telehealth and telemedicine and teletherapy. Now, teletherapy is when an individual, a client, interacts with a therapist across some sort of a platform. That could be a phone, just an ordinary telephone. It could be a smartphone where you can actually, I suppose, communicate somehow differently, or it could be a computer.
Yeah.
And within the computer world, that's the world I operate in, there are a number of what we call platforms that facilitate this kind of exchange of information. And one I use is called DocSeeMe, which is essentially Doc, see me, okay?
Yeah.
Because you can see the client and the client can see you. And it's a pretty good, easy to use platform. Even I can use it, Ralph.
Which is an excellent thing because, some of the platforms, when they first came out, they were very useful for people who were, in the terminology we use today, very computer literate. But they didn't work very well for those of us who had grown up in a previous generation without computers.
Right.
Now everything is simplified.
Yeah. Even Zoom, which a lot of people used, was kind of foreign to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are these platforms, and we've been doing a course on, creating a course on telemedicine, and we found that there are about 300 various platforms available out there, and more being developed, every month. But there are about 5 or 6 of them that really seem to be the meat and potatoes of the industry.
Yeah. Now,
Doxy is one, Zoom is another.
For example, right at the moment, and Jim has mentioned that he uses DocSeeMe a lot. that seems to be one of the leading contenders for best in class.
Mm-hmm.
But with 300 competitors being developed, who knows what 2 years from now people will be saying, oh, yeah, I used to use DocSeMe, but now I'm using Widget,
Right.
and
It's kind of like, hey, yeah, I used to be on MySpace,
yeah,
and now,
and now I'm not there.
yeah,
And so you say, well, what what is the best? Well, the best at what particular point in time, and you know, a couple of years in the future, it may be still the best because it's already got a jump and may develop better, faster, blah blah, more secure. But who knows?
there might be something else that comes along. And given the rapidity of media, I would say that is probably a good bet that something will come along. So, what we're trying to do in our course is we're trying to help our practitioners get a kind of a handle on how to look at and evaluate the various platforms that are out there. The thing that's kind of bothersome, Ralph, is that if something better comes along, um, will our practitioners embrace it, or will they continue on with the kind of the same old thing? Kind of like the college professor who uses the same notes year after year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a concern that's out there.
Well, one of the other things, Jim, that's a concern, and that is medical practitioners said, "Oh, well, this is great if I can do a 15-minute consult face to face, but I have to have somebody bring the patient into my office. I have to say hi. I have to blah blah blah." And then we get to our actual 15-minute consult. I can see half again the number of patients if I do electronic um, connection. And so we found that people were trying to expand their practice to help more people, particularly through COVID when more people needed help. And what the what the physicians and therapists and nurses found is that they were burning out.
Yeah, they were seeing more people with big problems, and you're right, they were burning out, and our clients were already burning out for sitting at home, in isolation. So that's burnout is just a huge concern in the helping professions, and we'll talk more about that in another,
Another venue, yeah.
yeah, another site takeaway. But there are some positives that have come out of telemedicine. It is convenient,
Right?
So for a lot of people who might be 200 or 300 miles away, they don't have to spend essentially a day getting into the clinic.
Right?
I can see my 15-year-old that's 300 miles away or 200 miles away to the north, and it's the hour session is an hour. It doesn't take the family 6 hours to drive
Yeah.
down and pay for the gas and pay for lunch out and things like that. So it's convenient, and that this lowers the cost in
Yeah.
general, I think. Um, and I can
And
be pretty consistent.
yeah,
If somebody's that far away, they may or may not decide that they want to come into the office. But if it's a matter of dialing up a phone or signing into a computer, they may very well do it. So
yeah.
consistency of contact is, I think, something that's pretty
And,
good here with telemedicine.
and the other thing is that, it also works well with people in crisis, either physical or therapeutic, in the sense that they can call the clinic and say, uh, I think I'm in trouble here. I need some help. Could I talk to Dr. Carroll? And it may be that you say, well, I can fit them in half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I have a client right now, but I can fit them in half an hour. And instead of having to say, I have to wait for my dad to come home to get in the car to drive 2 hours, blah blah, you can say I'm half or 20 minutes away
Yeah.
from talking to my therapist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, in terms of telemedicine, we've had things like crisis intervention lines for years now, and they really work. The thing that's kind of different is that what if it's 11 o'clock at night and my client wants to talk to me? I'm asleep, but I get up and talk, and off it goes, and that's going to contribute to burnout. Also, so there have to be some guidelines established, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of those guidelines that are needed in the next part of the series. I think we've got a few more things that we have to kind of look at here, Ralph. So should we make this a series of 3 or 4? Probably 2 or 3.
I think so, yeah, because telehealth, telemedicine, and teletherapy are very broad categories. And, for example, if you're a occupational health therapist who specializes in occupational health for children, sometimes it's a little more difficult to work with children online where you want to do manipulative tasks with them.
Right. That's something I had to learn in terms of doing play therapy with children. If they're in my office, I've got all sorts of stuff that's around there that they can use. But if they're at home, not so much. So we had to develop ways of using the material in their environment to help them with their expression, emotional expressions. Well, until the next time, this is Jim
And Ralph,
saying, keep your stick on the ice
because we're all in this
together.